Hello, this is Vivica Williams, and you're watching Head to Head. Today, we're talking about large-scale privatization, an important initiative to attract investments to Ukraine and thus stimulate the Ukrainian economy. To talk more about this and other challenges to Ukraine's privatization plan, we're joined in the studio today by Dmytro Yablonovskyy, Deputy Director at the Center for Economic Strategy. Dmytro, thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome.
So my first question is, for our viewers, we want to talk about what large-scale privatization is and how it differs from small-scale.
Large-scale, it's by logic the privatization of big objects with the assets above 250 million hryvnias. And basically, it's not only that the size is different, but also is that the procedure is different. Because for the small-scale privatization, what we do, we just put the object or the enterprise on Prozora sale, and then it's sold without any additional conditions, etc. So the main thing is just open competition. Whoever comes, he or she may buy the object. For the large-scale privatization, it's more complicated. For example, we have the investment advisors.
Well, first of all, why is it more complicated? It has to do not just with the size of the company. These are companies that have, as you say, are worth over 250,000 hryvnia, which is million hryvnia, which is roughly 10 million. Thereabouts $10 million US dollars. And so it's not just about how much they cost. It has to also do with the scale of the enterprise or what fields they're in.
In many cases, we believe that, of course, Ukrainians, we are proud of our enterprises. We believe these are some pearls or some magic companies which produce something extremely wonderful. But in fact, when we look deeply in detail at, for example, financial statements of the companies, usually they are not profit-making, right. Often they are loss-making. Also, there are a lot of court decisions which are against the state-owned enterprises. Some politicians are trying to capture the enterprises in their interest. So
kind of maybe some ones that are bankrupt as well as not profitable. And
in this case, if you just put it on sale immediately, it can be the case that no one actually will come and buy them. So we don't want, of course, this situation. We also want not just Ukrainian companies or investors to come, but also we are open for international investors, and we would like to have them on board and come and try to purchase these large-scale assets. But in order to do this, we first need to do some cleanup there. We really need to understand what is going on and what we can actually do to make them look better in front of the eyes of the potential investors. So this is looking at, when you're saying about doing cleanup, this is really doing some in-depth auditing of the company, yes,
to look at
that one.
So not financial auditing, but also looking at the grounds or seeing why they're insolvent.
Usually, if you look, for example, at these investment advisors who already won the competition and started working on the objects, we would see that they combine financial experts team, legal expert team, management consultancy expert team. So basically, these are the expert teams who really deep dive into all the accounting, at all the statements in order to understand the real situation, and then come with a proposal plan to the government how the revenue can be maximized from the privatization, how the number of potential buyers can be increased. So because what we want to have the maximum amount of investors who would like to buy the object and would compete with each other, because on the one hand it will allow to attract strategic investment with strategic plans, and on the other hand to maximize the revenue proceed from the privatization.
And recently, Ukrainian government announced that it had come to the end of roughly 5 years with the small privatization, which was quite successful, and now to start with large privatization, which hasn't been as successful, not moving as much. And I know the IMF has specifically been interested in pushing large-scale privatization. So now the Cabinet of Ministries released a list of 21 companies that are open for the first round of privatization. Tell us about these companies, maybe why they were chosen, and what we're looking to see now.
basically, these are quite different companies. There is one hotel, there is a pharmaceutical company, there are mining companies, there are energy distribution companies. So basically, it's kind of a list of very different by size and by business companies. I think this list basically includes those companies which are more or less are ready to be sold, because a lot of companies, for example, state-owned companies, cannot be sold because they're prohibited for privatization according to the law. There is a special law which limits the number of enterprises which can be privatized. So basically, these are kind of top of the list, which are more or less ready to be privatized.
And so what are, do they have anything in common other than that they're at a stage that needs to be privatized?
They're very different, I would say, because like a hotel is just a hotel down in the center of Kiev, more or less, and I mean, it's a functioning business, it's more or less profitable, so it can be sold, except that it has also some lessors, but again, this is a bit other story. Then there is a pharmaceutical company, which is also a functioning business, which works in the competitive market. On the other hand, we have Obolenergos, which are regional energy supply companies, which are monopolies, in fact, and there is a whole different story, because their price is not estimated by the market of their services, but by the regulator, the National Commission for Regulating Electricity Services. It's kind of different story there. So they're very different, and basically that is why we need these investment advisors, because we cannot simply put them on Prozoro sale and just sell them as simple objects. We really need to deep dive into particular situation at each particular object to understand what are the peculiarities, who are the potential buyers, because sometimes it can be really a problem to find a buyer, because he or she may not know that we are selling this object, and the potential buyer can be in the Europe, for example, in the United States, or in China, for example. So it really is a complicated process of trying to find as many possible buyers as possible.
And so have there been some success stories so far?
Unfortunately, not for large-scale privatization, because again,
it's just started now.
Yeah,
right?
The law was passed last year, but then last year there were 23 objects. Unfortunately, there was only one auction, and it was for Centrenergo, and because State Property Fund disqualified 2 potential participants, so there was no auction actually. So, but according to the memorandum with IMF, there should be another try this year, and we'll see how it works. Because again,
so what are some of the things that are keeping this from being successful? I mean, as you're saying, it is much different from small-scale privatization. There's less involved in the size of the building business, but what's been the holdback so far?
There are 2 types of problems. There are kind of the first type of a problem is basically specific to each enterprise. They may have some court proceedings or some problems with profitability. This varies from enterprise to enterprise. The other big problem is the rule of law in the country, because if we want to have many investors, especially international investors, they have to be sure that their property rights are protected. Can we guarantee it? Yes, we are trying to do so. We are, for example, according to the recent Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, Ukraine now improved its rating, but I think in many cases it's yet not enough. So, but still, we have to think how to attract those people and how to convince them that if they buy the object, their rights would be protected. For example, we can offer English law to be applied to large-scale privatization contracts, and it is indeed what was done, and I hope it can work in this case to improve the perception of property rights protection for the potential buyers.
So then that'll be a great indication for the success of large-scale privatization. Is going to be a really great watershed moment, which shows that there's a more trust from international investors in the entire system of Ukraine when it comes to the protection of property rights.
It's a very, very important sign. If we are able to sell transparently on a transparent auction, if we manage to do this, this will be a sign for other investors. Okay, somebody invests in this country, he may purchase the object here, and the auction is transparent, it doesn't have any, I don't know, differentiation or something. So okay, we can go here as well. And it's good sign not only for privatization, but for buying any object.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that'll be a definite sign that Ukraine is indeed open. All right. Thank you so much for being with us today to give us a really good feedback on where we should expect to see large privatization go this year. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was Dmytro Yablonovskyy, Deputy Director at the Center for Economic Strategy. Thank you for watching and stay tuned with UATV for more.